If you've ever built a web app with Node.js, chances are you've used Express. But have you ever really stopped to think about what an Express app is? It turns out the whole thing, the entire framework, is built on this one single idea: middleware. And honestly, getting your head around it is the key to truly mastering Express.
I'm not kidding, that's straight from the official docs. That powerful framework you're using, deep down, it's really just a chain of functions, one after another. This simple concept unlocks everything about how Express works, and today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how this engine runs.
So here's the plan. We'll start with the big idea itself. Then, we'll peek under the hood at the mechanism that makes it all tick. After that, we'll look at the awesome toolkit it gives you as a developer, see it come to life with a real code example, and finally, wrap up with the payoff: why this pattern is so incredibly powerful.
All right, let's dive right in at the beginning. What exactly is this thing called middleware? Well, at its core, it's just a function. That's it. But it's a special kind of function that gets access to three really important things: rec, which has all the info about the incoming request; res, which is what we use to send a response back to the user; and the most important one of all, next. Think of next as your golden ticket to the next stop in the chain. And that next function is the absolute key to understanding the core mechanism of Express, this idea of a request-response pipeline. Just imagine a request coming into your application. It doesn't go straight to its final destination. Nope. Instead, it enters this pipeline. It gets handled by the first middleware, which can do whatever it needs to do. And if that middleware calls next, it passes the baton to the next middleware in the chain, and so on until it finally hits the route handler that sends back the response. You know, to make this a little less abstract, let's get creative. Think of your app as Hogwarts Castle. A request is like someone trying to get into a specific classroom. But before they can get there, they have to pass through a series of protective spells. Maybe one spell checks if they're a student, another logs their name in a book. Each one of those spells is a middleware, and they all act in a specific sequence. Okay, but that brings up a really critical question, right? What if one of those spells doesn't let the person through? What happens to our request if a function in that chain just never calls next?
Well, one of two things can happen. If the middleware just stops and does nothing, the request literally hangs there forever. The user's browser just spins and spins, never getting a response. Or, and this is the useful one, the middleware can intentionally send a response itself, like a 401 unauthorized error. This is called short-circuiting the pipeline. The request never even makes it to the next step, which is an incredibly useful pattern for things like validation and security.
So now that we get the how, let's talk about the what. What can you actually do with middleware? Turns out it's basically a developer's Swiss Army knife for all those common tasks you have to deal with. I mean, think about it. You can use it for pretty much any task that cuts across multiple routes. Things like logging every single request that comes in, parsing JSON from a post request, checking if a user is logged in before they can see a page, validating data, handling errors in one central place, or even serving up your static assets like CSS and images. All of these are perfect jobs for middleware. Okay, enough theory. Theory is great, but code is better. Let's make this real with our Hogwarts example and see how we can build and apply our very own custom middleware. One of the coolest things about middleware is that you get to choose its scope. You can apply it globally, so it runs on every single request coming into your app. You could apply it to a group of related routes, like everything under /admin, or you can get super specific and apply it to just one single route. This gives you amazing control. So here's our mission. We're building the server-side Marauders map. We want to log every time someone tries to access the /wizards or /spells information, but we don't care about any other part of the app. This is the perfect use case for some targeted middleware. And you know what? The middleware function itself is ridiculously simple. We just define a function, log student actions. It takes our classic rec, res, and next arguments. It does its one job, in this case, just a simple console.log. And then, and this is the crucial part, it calls next dot to let the request continue on its merry way.
Now here's where the magic happens. We use app.use to apply it. But instead of just passing the function, we first pass an array with the specific paths we care about. This tells Express, hey, only run this log student actions function for requests that start with /wizards or /spells. It's that easy.
And the result of this? Just look at our route handler for /wizards. It's so clean. Its only job is to worry about sending back the list of wizards.
It has no clue that it's being logged. This is called separation of concerns, and it's a massive win for keeping your code clean and easy to maintain.
So what happens when we run this? We hit the /wizards endpoint, and bam, there it is right in our server's console. The message from our middleware pops up exactly as we wanted, right before the route handler does its job. It just works.
Okay, so we've seen what middleware is and how it works. Let's just zoom out for a second and talk about the real payoff here. Why is this architectural pattern so important?
It really boils down to these 4 things. Your code becomes more modular because each little middleware function does just one thing. It's super reusable. You can apply that same authentication checker to dozens of different routes. All of this leads to much cleaner code, and finally, it makes your entire application incredibly extensible. And that extensibility is what makes the Express world go around. There are thousands of third-party middleware packages out there. You want to add serious security headers to your app? npm install Helmet. Add 1 line of code and you're done. Need really fancy advanced logging? npm install Morgan. This pipeline architecture makes adding incredibly powerful features almost trivial.
See, once you start to view your app not just as a collection of endpoints, but as a series of pipelines, you start to think differently. You're not just writing handlers, you're composing workflows. So as you head back to your own projects, the real question isn't if you'll use middleware, but what's the first powerful reusable tool you're going to build with it?